Joe Mazzulla's contract extension, Jayson Tatum's walking around, and what would it take for Jaylen Brown to win the MVP? I'm answering your mailbag questions right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Beantown, be ever ready. It's the C's. Who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis, recap the madness every game, every practice. Primetime, Depp and D White on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and I'm talking about them, well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, plus bonus podcast, maybe a bonus podcast when the schedule drops this week. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Show is free. It's available everywhere. It's on YouTube. Get into the comments section there. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm John Karalis, beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've been doing a version of this job for about 20 years now. I've written a couple of books about the team as well. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase of tickets to whatever you want to go to, really. Today's a mailbag episode, so you go to johnkaralis.com/mailbag, johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That is where you submit the questions. This is the only place I'm taking questions, so submit your questions there. Get them into me. During the offseason especially, I do a mailbag every Monday to answer whatever questions you might have. There's still stuff happening. So you do that. When the season starts, it's a little less frequent because there's basketball to talk about. But I think this season's going to be a lot of questions because this is going to be a wild season. So make sure you're submitting your questions at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. The Luka Dončić conspiracy lives, and we'll talk about that later on. What's going to happen to Jordan Walsh? His whole second segment's dedicated to Jaylen Brown, including what would it take for him to win an MVP. But let's just jump into the big news coming from Victor, who asks, hey, Joe Mazzulla won a championship, but he's had a loaded roster. Why did they extend him now? And before seeing what kind of coaching job he did with lesser talent. So it's a good question. Obviously, the obvious answer is they believe in him. And now I asked the question of Brad Stevens way back, postseason, first Brad Stevens availability. It was the last question where I asked, is there any consideration to a Joe Mazzulla extension? And he kind of blew off the question and said he's under contract for multiple years. But then he was asked again a second time after the draft and kind of said the same thing. We want to have Joe around for a long time. And then the Celtics went out and did extend him. So I'm going to pat myself in the back a little bit because I knew something was going to happen, and it did happen. So as much as Brad was like being coy about it, they did extend him. They do believe in him. They think that he has the right approach with the players. The players love him. Derek White said, I love Joe Mazzulla. What would he say? I really love Joe Mazzulla. Jayson Tatum, I love him to death. Like those guys, or maybe it was Derek White who said I love him to death. Everybody on this team has good things to say. Front office, players, all of that about Joe. Joe is, as some might say, to put it in G-rated terms, an odd duck. But there is a method to his madness. And I think when it comes to coaching in the NBA, so much more of it is interpersonal communication. Like, I don't know if people understand how different it is to coach in the NBA than in college, where in college it is absolutely a coach's game. The coach can yell and scream and bench, and like, it doesn't really matter. And I'm curious to see how that evolves as the transfer portal becomes a bigger and bigger thing. I mean, everybody's transferring all the time. But it's still a coach's game. In the NBA, it's a player's game. You invest 5 years and 35% of your cap in a player, or 30% of your cap in a player, or 25% of your cap in a player, depending on where they are in their careers. You're putting a lot of money in players, right? Your payroll is up over $200 million for the players. When something goes awry, the coach is the one that gets canned. Look at Tom Thibodeau in New York. We knew that this thing was coming. We knew that he was going to get fired if they didn't overachieve. And one might argue that they did overachieve, but regardless, that situation shows if the players and the coach aren't really on the same page, then he can go. And the same could happen to Joe at some point. If it's not going well and somebody's saying that his act is wearing thin, let's say, then things can certainly turn for everybody. Every coach gets fired. So minus what, 3 or 4 ever, you know what I mean? It's a handful of guys that don't get fired. So anyway, back to Joe. I think his approach is good. I do think the 3-point stuff is overblown in that we haven't seen the approach with a bunch of non-shooters on the team. You can argue that Tatum and Brown and White and Holiday and Horford, they're all capable 3-point shooters. So of course you're going to try to math your way offensively to wins. I want to see how it works this year with less than adequate 3-point shooters out there. I want to see how it evolves. I'm going to guess that if Brad Stevens has seen fit to extend Joe Mazzulla, they've had that conversation, right? They're on the same page. They understand each other, right? So we might sit here on the outside and be like, we've seen everything along the way and be like, I can't understand. I know people are going to be listening and say, I can't understand why you extend him now, right? That's why I got the question. But also, you don't see the day-to-day interaction. You don't see Joe. You haven't seen anything from Joe other than a couple of podcast appearances and, a thing here or there, a quote somewhere along the way since the season ended. But Brad has seen Joe probably 75% of the days that have existed since the season has ended. They talk all the time. So he knows something about what this upcoming season is going to be with Joe. We don't. We're going to see it, but that's why the extension happened. And it's stability. It's consistency. You know, you don't want to be the team that has a new head coach every year. This is the best way forward. And I believe in Joe Mazzulla. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's only going into his 4th season. So he obviously has stuff to learn, ways to mature. He has to probably calm down about certain things. He probably has to tone down maybe the competitiveness a little bit, so he can have a better, I think, long-term handle on things. Maybe like the craziness to win every game might need to tone down and understand that it's a little bit more of a marathon in the moment. So there are definitely things that he needs to evolve, but I think it's a good move. And so congratulations to Joe Mazzulla. Dave asks, you were there to see Jayson Tatum walking all over the place. How did he look? Well, Dave, he looked fine. So I was at the Celtics community event in Providence. They're groundbreaking for an early education center at a public housing complex. It's, I live, obviously I'm a Rhode Islander, so I like the Celtics extending their community reach down into Rhode Island. There are a couple of Rhode Island connections on the team in the front office. So it was good for them to do that. Jayson Tatum showed up and, gingerly walking, although he's always had kind of like that cool stride to him, but obviously there's a gingerness to that walk, but he got off the bus, walked into a basketball court, sat down, got up, made a speech, walked down a path to the community center, walked all through that, walked up the stairs, skipped steps along the way up the stairs to take pictures with fans. It was all really good. I can't say where that puts him as in terms of his recovery. Some people will say, hey, it's a great sign that he's walking like this, no boot or anything like that at this point, which kind of falls in line from what I've seen of Achilles recovery. This is about when you get out of the boot, but he seems to be doing well. I haven't seen him working out, so I'm sure that when he's at the gym, lifting and all of that stuff, that there's some amount of stuff that he's doing in the boot to protect the Achilles, but mostly he's out and walking fine. It's not 100%, but he's walking fine. It's a good sign. It's nice to see. As I've said before, it's going to take a little while to see not only how quickly he heals, but how fast he's ready to be on the floor. I asked Rich Gotham, team president, is the team prepared to put him on the floor if he's cleared by the end of the season? And obviously he kind of sidestepped the question, but said, we expect him to put us in a position to make that decision, which is an interesting kind of admission. I don't know if admission is the right word, but to say we expect him to put us in position to make that decision, it's an interesting kind of place for the team to be, because they say he's going to work his butt off to be ready to be part of this team, all of that stuff. They acknowledge that he's trying to get back as soon as possible. So the quote of we expect him to put us in a position to make that decision is in and of itself interesting, because they're not ruling him out for a comeback this year. They haven't sat there and said he's definitely not coming back like the Pacers have said with Tyrese Halliburton. They have said, the team president is on record as saying, we'll see. So the door is open for Jayson Tatum to come back. We'll see where that goes. Coming back, the entire second segment, Jaylen Brown. Questions about his MVP, questions about showcasing him for something else. We'll get to that when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. It's the place to go for buying tickets to whatever. Concert tickets, baseball tickets, soccer tickets, a show, a comedy show, whatever it is. Game Time can come in and get you into those shows that you want to get to, even if you make a last-minute decision. Game Time makes it easier and faster to get into a concert. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. So if you're tired of scrolling endlessly to find the deal, Game Time has a zone deals pick that picks the best seats in a section that you want to sit in. You get a panoramic seat view, so you know what you're going to see when you get there. And the price you pay is the price you pay. No hidden fees at Game Time, and the Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. I've used Game Time plenty. I do not get this deal because this is not my first time buying tickets through Game Time, but you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKED, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go subscribe to the Locked On NBA feed on YouTube, on whatever audio app. 2 podcasts on Locked On NBA. I do Locked On NBA Game Night. During the season, we'll be covering all the games that night, but during the offseason, we're covering the league, all the big stories. So Thursday, I believe, is going to be the schedule drop. So we're going to be talking NBA schedule on the Friday show. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcast. Let's get back to the questions. Again, questions can be submitted at johnkaralis.com. Brad and Jonas have similar questions. Brad asks, do you see a scenario where Jaylen Brown averages MVP type numbers without Jayson Tatum, possibly making another All NBA team as well? Jonas says, what would it take for JB to win an MVP this season? 3rd in the East, average 30 and 8. Would love to know your thoughts. Okay. Can I see a scenario where Jaylen averages MVP types of numbers? I can see him averaging better numbers. But I understand this notion that There's no Jayson Tatum, so Jaylen's going to get a lot of the looks, the touches, all of that stuff. So he's going to have an opportunity to put up the like he had 26.6 points per game the year he made the second team All NBA. So can he get to that again? I think he can get up. Last year he averaged 22. The year before he averaged 23. I think without more guys around, he can get up to 26. I can see that, no problem. Especially if his 3-point shooting can, last year 32.4%. That's bad. That's his worst 3-point shooting season. So if he can get back up to 36%, then yeah, you can. I don't know if he's going to get up 6 per game, but probably actually. So he can get up to 26. MVP type numbers. I don't know if he's going to get to MVP type numbers. MVP is 30 plus points per game. You got to have assists. You got to have rebounds. You got to have something else in that mix. The team has to overachieve. So without Tatum and Horford and Drew and Porzingis, Jaylen's going to get a lot of the shots. Also, Jaylen's going to get all the defensive attention. So you have to take that into consideration as well. Remember, last year, year before that, he's had a lot of help out there with Tatum on the floor, with all these other guys on the floor. There are driving lanes. I'm curious to see how the half-court offense looks with Jaylen when teams can game plan and say, okay, there's no Jayson Tatum. Jaylen is the number one guy on the scouting report. Here's how we shut him down. He's going to have to probably hit a lot more jump shots. He's probably going to have to hit a lot more out of the mid-range. He's probably going to have to post up, and we'll see a lot of those turnarounds, step throughs, all of that stuff. He can do all that stuff. I think he can have a very good season, but it would take things that I don't think are possible. Like Jonas says, third in the East. If the Celtics are third in the East, then yeah, now you're looking at potential. If Jaylen is averaging 28 points and if he's up to, I don't know, what does he average for assists? Last year was 4.5 at career best. He's going to have to get that up to he's going to have to average a couple more, at least 6.5. Can he get up to 6, 7 assists a game? He's going to have to. First of all, for the Celtics offense to be its absolute best, Jaylen is going to have to average a few more assists just because he is going to get a ton of that defensive attention. So he's going to have to be able to pass more. He's going to have to look for his teammates more. He's going to have to be, and he's gotten so much better at this, but he's going to have to accept double teams a lot more, draw the 2 away and start the offense and give his team a 4-on-3 advantage. That's going to be part of his game. So that will, if he can get assists out of that or secondary assists, if we can dive into advanced stats and really make a case for him, then maybe the Celtics offense is going to be good enough where you can say, okay, Jaylen's making a case for, at the very least, an All-NBA spot, which I think is possible. I think Jaylen as an All-NBA guy, if the Celtics are 5th in the East, middle of the pack, then I think he can have a case. Obviously, it depends on a lot of other things, but I think Jaylen probably has a shot at maybe another second team All-NBA. First team, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not going to say no, but he could make an All-NBA. MVP would be tough because now you're adding a team element and the team's just not going to be that great. No matter what Jaylen does offensively, it's still going to be a bad defensive team. He's not going to be on the floor all 48 minutes, and he shouldn't be playing 42, 43 minutes. Like, he should just play his normal minutes, and the chips will fall where they may. You still have Derek White, who's going to be very good. You still have to figure out everybody else. So you can't push it. You can't risk injury. You can't push the hamstring. Like, all of the soft tissue things that he has been prone to in the past, you don't want to tempt that fate because you just don't want the guy to get hurt. But I don't see an MVP season out of Jaylen. obviously you can't rule anything out at this point, but 30 plus points per game. He's got to have like 5, 6, 7 assists, 5, 6, 7 rebounds per game. He's never averaged 7. He's got to 6.9 that one year, his all NBA year. That's what it's going to have to take. It's going to be tough. So we'll see. And then Aiden asks, to go along with the Carlisle pace and depth discussion, do you think this can be a showcase year for Jaylen Brown so that he can be traded for multiple quality players? Is the vision to build a Pacers-like team around Jayson Tatum? It's a good question. I'm going to answer that when I come back. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make sure you become an everydayer. There are a lot of everydayers with me who are generally with me Monday through Friday. This week it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe a bonus podcast when the schedule drops. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts. Show is on YouTube. Become an everydayer and enjoy the show with me. Big fun season coming up. So before the break, I was asked about showcasing Jaylen Brown and is the vision to build a Pacers-like team around Jayson Tatum. I can see a future where Jayson and Derek and a big is your quote unquote big three, and you're building pieces around that with players that you have brought in, trading Jaylen Brown. I can see that. I can also see Jaylen Brown being part of the future, and you're just building around two dynamic wings. You have your perimeter all set, and you're just finding passable bigs, good enough bigs that can do the things, set the picks, pop maybe, roll maybe, do those things and not be expensive. Like I can see equal paths. So I'm not going to sit here and advocate for trading Jaylen Brown. I'm also not going to sit here and say you absolutely have to keep Jaylen Brown. I think there is a path either way. So, but if you do trade Jaylen, it has to be, you got to get that positional fit that if you're going to do it, then bring back a big, bring back, I don't know who it would be, but, Miles Turner is a name that pops out, but he's already signed with Milwaukee. Maybe there's something there, but you know what I'm saying? Like you get your point guard, you get your wing, you get your big, and you fill in gaps around that. I think that's kind of a way to make it work if you do trade Jaylen. Showcasing him this year, I think we're past showcase for Jaylen. Although I will admit, Aiden, a whole year of Jaylen as the number one guy, if he can have a hell of a year as a number one guy, then let's just say, going back to the last segment, let's just say he has an all NBA season, whatever team it is on, 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. He has what people will say his best season of his career. He might be the one that says, hey, look, I need to, at this point in my life, at 28, almost 29, I need to spread my wings. I need to be a number one option somewhere. You guys are clearly going in a different direction. Let me go. And maybe Atlanta, his hometown team, comes calling, and you figure out a deal that way. He gets reunited with Kristaps Porzingis, his buddy, and they, whatever. And he becomes the number one guy there. I do not want Trae Young in that deal. Maybe it's a 3-team deal. Trae Young goes somewhere else. The Celtics get a bunch of role players and you figure it out from there. But regardless, I can see a scenario where the team is like, yeah, maybe we can move on. And Jaylen is like, yeah, maybe I want to move on too, because you're clearly going to be building around Jayson. And I want a few years of my life as the number one guy. I just need to see it. I need to prove it. And I totally understand that. I would totally get it. So I don't know if it's a showcase type of thing, but he may see that as that, and he wants to showcase himself, prove things for himself, that he can be a guy. He talks about how much he's sacrificed. He's talked tons about, I do things, it's always team first and blah, blah, blah. Let me be clear. I'm not going to sit there and say that he wants to bail. I'm not saying that he wants, he wants out or anything like that. He has been a big part of Boston. I love what he's done for the city, for the kids in the city. It's been amazing. I think he's a good person that I would love to have here for a long time. But I also see Jaylen as a guy who I don't think he likes unanswered questions. I don't think he likes what ifs. I think if there's a what if, he just kind of wants to answer it. And so if he has a great season, his what ifs, I don't know if he wants to go his whole career, his whole life saying, I had a 2 or 3 year window, which is a short window in life, to go be the number one guy, to prove to myself and to prove to other people that I could be more than somebody's sidekick or a number 2 option behind somebody else. I got to do it. I got to find a spot. I got to be able to see if that was right or not. And if he doesn't, I think he'd be satisfied in the fact that he tried. I don't think he's like, I don't want to use the word loyalty. I don't think he believes in loyalty when it comes to business. This is just me guessing. I think he understands business is business and that teams aren't loyal to players because they can trade them at any time. So there's no reason for players to be loyal to a team. And I think that's the right way to think, by the way. I think that's the exact right way to go. I'm sorry to say it because fans want loyalty because fans are loyal, but you're loyal to the players and the team because the team doesn't move. You know, Boston is there. You live in Boston, you live in the surrounding areas, but the players are making money and this is their career and this is their livelihood. And teams are like, well, look, they just traded Drew. They traded Porzingis. You know, they will make moves when they have to. And so where's the loyalty there? So I can see all of these things conspiring to have Jaylen be like, look, I love everybody here. I've outgrown what you want me to be. So I want to go somewhere else. I can absolutely see that happening. So we'll see. But I'm not predicting that that's going to happen. I can just say, maybe. Okay, moving on. Parker wants to know, what do you think will happen with Jordan Walsh? What will he need to do to get an extension? Again, another guy. I like Jordan Walsh, hard worker, great athlete. I think heading into year 3, I think they're going to have him stick around, but I don't think there's an extension coming. I think they can have him stick around and see if he grows and maybe makes the most of his opportunity and let him go into free agency. And if it's great and they want to keep him, they'll just negotiate with him and sign a deal with him at the end of the season. I don't think there's any reason to extend him now. He's, tradable contract. You can throw him in to aggregate at this point. You're under the second apron. So you have that option. He's an expiring deal. So that's, maybe helpful, but you give him that season and you say, okay, let's see what can you do? What can you do with this one more year? You've got 3 years. Either you prove that you fit and we'll sign you again, or you've proven that you don't quite fit. You're not quite getting it. And you can go somewhere else and you can go to the Utahs of the world that might be able to develop you a little bit more and give you more time and more opportunity and just, shake your hand and wish you luck. I think that's where Jordan Walsh is. Adam asks, am I being a conspiracy theorist if I'm not buying the Luka trade was just a bad trade or related to his conditioning? Seems quite conveniently timed with a billionaire buying the Lakers that was going nowhere fast. It answers a lot of what the hell questions. Why didn't they shop him around, get the best deal? Why hasn't Nico Harrison been fired? Am I crazy, or does a backroom deal between billionaire owners just make more sense here? I'm the wrong person to ask, Adam, because I don't believe in that stuff in the NBA. Why? My number one question there is, why? Why would billionaire owners make that deal? Why is that? What's the conspiracy theory there? That they make that the owner of the Mavs decided to make the Lakers better? That what the NBA said, no, we can't have the Lakers be bad. The Lakers have been bad, right? The Lakers have been horrible they've had their stretches of being awful, and the league has survived just fine. You know, this whole conspiracy theory thing, like you can make anything. The whole key to conspiracy theory is like the tiniest shred of plausibility. You just go, oh man, it makes sense that the league would want the Lakers to be good because they're the Lakers. This league doesn't need the Lakers to be good every year. The Lakers are going to have to rebuild and all that stuff. What happened here is Nico Harrison is a moron, and he traded Luka Dončić and decided that he was he was basically called him fat. Said you're fat and you're not going to be the guy to like. He watched the NBA Finals. He watched the Celtics pick on him. He watched him kind of fall apart, and he said to himself, "This guy is good enough to get us kind of far, but not good enough to get us over the top." So he went a different direction. It was a dumb direction. The whole thing was dumb. But what's the quote? I don't know it off the top of my head, but don't attribute to maliciousness what you can attribute to stupidity, or some version of that. Somebody in the comments can get me the actual quote, but that's basically it. If the answer is more likely that it's just stupid, if the answer is possibly that it's stupid, that's more likely than it's like some big conspiracy. I don't buy it. I think he's just a moron. I don't believe in the entire league conspiring to push this Lakers thing. I don't. That's a media, like ESPN would do it, right? But the league won't. All right, let's wrap things up here. Two more quick ones. Peter asks, what's more likely, a Clippers championship in 2026 or the Hawks getting the number 1 seed in the East? Well, I don't think the Hawks are getting the number 1 seed in the East, so that answers that question. I don't believe in Trae Young. Everybody knows that. I don't believe that a Trae Young team is going to overachieve. So I think the Clippers, I kind of like what the Clippers have done. I know it's tenuous. It's, a little bit of a popsicle stick house, but it's still, I can still see the house. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Certain things need to go right in LA. I'm certainly not picking the Clippers to win a championship, but I wouldn't be surprised if things coalesced, especially if the timing of it was right, that the Clippers all of a sudden make a run. And I just don't believe in the Hawks. So, and finally, I believe this is Aoife asks, what do you think Joe Mazzulla's Dunkin' order is? And what's your Dunkin' order? I don't know. What's the craziest? Like, Joe has to be like, I don't know. He's going to be like nothing but like pure gasoline. Like he's going to be like, what's the most insane? He probably doesn't eat carbs. He's in great shape. Does he even eat Dunkin'? My Dunkin' order is a large black coffee. It's always a hot black coffee with a few exceptions. Like if it's 110 degrees out, I'll switch to like a cold brew, but it's always a hot black coffee. And if I'm eating something, it's like a turkey sausage, egg and cheese on an English muffin. That's it. Simple. Joe, he's got to be like a psycho, right? So he's got to be like, I don't know. Can he get them to make the hottest possible coffee? And like pour it over his head? Like I can't picture anything like it's not going to be any of the sugary stuff. It's not going to be any of the carb stuff. I think maybe like on a cheat day, he probably has like something like 2 munchkins and like a small coffee or something like that. That's it. Because he's just, I don't know. That's the best I can do. It's if they had something like, I don't know, crazy name, maybe. I can't think of a crazy Joe Mazzulla order. I do know that it was funny that Mike Vrabel got, bloodied trying to break up a fight at Patriots practice. And I thought, well, if it was a Celtics practice, Joe would get bloody trying to start a fight. That kind of stuff is where I'm going with this, but I don't know. I don't know what's Joe's dunking order. You tell me in the comment section. That'll do it here. We're trying to have some fun in the last section of these mailbags. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag is where you ask the questions. This is where I answer them on Mondays. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. It's free. It's available everywhere. It's daily starting September 8th, 3 days a week, plus bonus podcasts as necessary. But before then, and then shows on YouTube, get into the comment section, share your thoughts with me, and then share the podcast. Tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.